Welcome to Spotlight in Business. I'm Tammy Defoe, and I would like you to meet Bill Bishop. He is the CEO of the Big Idea Company, and he is a big idea coach, author, speaker, and I'm so happy that he will be the guest speaker at GTApreneurs November the 12th virtual business networking event. And before we get to his presentation on the 12th, I wanted you to get to know him a little bit more. So thanks for coming on the show today, Bill. How are you?
I'm just fantastic. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So tell us more about yourself.
Well, like you say, I have a company. It's called the Big Idea Company,
Mhm.
we're in Toronto. And it's hard to imagine, but I've actually been in business almost 40 years now. And we've worked with about 5,000 companies. And what we do is we help them come up with a big idea for the future of their business. So
Mhm.
the analogy I use is that, they've been doing this, their existing business for quite a while. And I call that the old factory. And they might have sort of reached a plateau with it, right? And they're
Mhm.
trying to think, how do I grow this business and get to a higher level? And maybe there's some things that I really want to do that I haven't done yet with my business. And we call that your new factory. So we say, keep running your old factory and
Right.
start thinking about what your new factory will be and what's the big idea for that new business, that future of your business, right? Um,
Very
so
interesting.
yeah, it's really exciting because everybody's got lots of things that they could do, but they
Mhm.
get kind of stuck in their existing business. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of responsibility you have. Uh, I say, like, it's kind of like getting stuck running a hot dog stand when you're really capable of being a gourmet chef, but you haven't got time, you think, to build the gourmet restaurant. So you get kind of frustrated and stuck. So our methodology is to help people get unstuck and build that better business, right?
Mhm.
So it's like I say, we've worked with 5,000 companies. So I feel like I have the best job in the world. I created my own job, but I really love doing what I do because I just see the potential that people are able to achieve with it.
Absolutely. And so how did you become a big idea coach?
Well, that's a great question because I never thought I would do such a thing. Wasn't on the career list, But
Mhm.
in 1981, I worked at the Keg restaurant at Yonge and Eglinton here in Toronto. And while I was in university, I was at Ryerson, and
Mhm.
so I had this nighttime job, and um, and they had this contest at the restaurant to get the waiters to sell the customers a steak and a lobster, get them to buy a lobster, an extra thing with it. And I ended up winning the contest. I sold 1,400 lobsters, and the second person sold 90. It was about 6 months, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so I never thought I never thought of myself as a salesperson and uh, anything like that. But here I won this sales contest, and that was actually because I came up with a big idea to do that. So that was my first one. And then
Cool.
other people said, "Well, can you help me sell this thing, whatever it is they've got?" And I said, "Yeah, maybe." And so I started coming up with big ideas for that, and then it just kept going, and then that became my business basically. That was it. So if I hadn't
Fantastic.
worked at the keg as a waiter, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, really.
Fantastic. Who knew,
Yeah.
like, they have helping people with these big companies that all size of companies could come from being a waiter, right?
I know, yeah, exactly, right? Like I worked with I work with mostly entrepreneurs now,
Mhm.
I worked with like big companies like TD Bank and you know IBM and Kodak and Bell Canada. That was at the beginning, and even then it was like, okay, what's the big idea for selling those kind of things? So
Mhm.
what kind of works for everybody.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of people, we're small business owners and, we're good at what we do, but, it's difficult for some people to get more clients, right? Like they don't have those skills. They're uncomfortable. They don't know how to ask for the business, right? Which if you don't ask for the business, you're not going to get the business, right? And, my philosophy is that more heads are better than one. So we only have so many ideas in our head. So to have someone like yourself who has these big ideas and can
Hmm.
learn about the business and help them out, I think that's fantastic.
Well, really, I've looked back over the 40 years. Most of the greatest ideas I've gotten about my business, I learned from going to some kind of webinar like this or reading a book, and it was just this one idea that the person said. And I go, okay, that's something I can really use. That's a big idea for me. And those were the things that really made all the difference and,
Mhm.
helped me be, more successful. So
Mhm.
So I'm a big believer in people learning and being coached and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, what's your new big business gonna be? You're gonna have some whole big business or something like that, but whatever thing that is just gonna help their business, grow further, right? And just
Uh-huh.
develop. Like some things they're just, and then they're like, "Oh, wow, I wish I would have thought of it though. Why didn't I think about that?" You know?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, what sort of a general kind of goal that we try to help everybody do is say, well, you're working a lot, right? And maybe you're not making as much money as you could. So you think, well, maybe I need to work more, but you can't. There's only so much
That's
time.
right. That's right.
So we say, okay, well, the big idea's got to help you do three things. One is try to help you make 10 times more money, which everybody
Mhm.
wants to do, but also work half as much, like half as much time. And then have like 100 times more fun doing your business. Now
Mhm.
that sounds like kind of a crazy goal, but if you start uh, working towards such a thing,
Mhm.
then it's exciting for one, because there's a good outcome, but also it forces you to start thinking differently about what you're doing. You know, it's not just about selling more hot dogs, right? Like that, there's only
Yeah.
so far you can go. So that's why I say the gourmet restaurant is the analogy for that. Like if you ran a gourmet restaurant, you would be making 10 times more. You'd be working less time and you'd probably be enjoying it more. So that's something I think we can all work towards. I think it's actually the best uh, business strategy to try to get that to happen.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think this is a really common thing that entrepreneurs experience, even myself included. We work so many hours, right? In that, and then you're getting ahead every year, but maybe not to the extent that you want to be getting ahead, right? And but again, you can't work more hours, so you need to do something different to get a different result.
Got to be something else. So what we have is a methodology. I call it new factory thinking, and essentially it's strategies. I call them game changers, really, that are really focused on the future and say, okay, we have certain sort of ideas about our business that actually are little traps, like we're stuck, and these new factory thinking strategies help unlock your mind to see other opportunities that you really can't see with the old way of thinking.
Hmm.
So I'll talk more about that in the presentation. But people get very excited when they learn this new way of thinking. And they also see that companies like Apple and Google and Amazon, like those big successful companies, that's actually how they think. They don't think like the old businesses. They think in a different way. And I say, listen, I know they're big companies and everything, but you can actually use the same thinking that they do. That it doesn't cost any more to do that, and they're successful because they use that thinking. So maybe you could do that too. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Fantastic. So when people first come to you, what are the issues they're having, basically?
Well, the first issue they have is, like I say, they're working a lot and they're not making as much money as they can. And the reason is because they're selling something that is essentially a commodity. So they have a product or service that is offered by a lot of other people, right?
Mm.
And so if somebody goes on Google and searches hammers, for example, they would see, well, there's 1,000 people that sell hammers. You're just one of them. So that makes it your product a commodity, which then creates price competition, which lowers your margin. Okay, so you get make less and less on every sale, and that's why I
Mm.
call it a hot dog, because that point, you're selling a $3 hot dog and you make 5 cents on every hot dog. It's not a
Right.
lot for all the work, right?
Hmm.
So those are the two biggest things. So you have a lot of competition, products become a commodity, and you can't charge more for your product, you think anyway, right? So
Right.
so that's when those all of those things are a bit of a trap, and people try all kinds of things to wiggle out of it, but they can't. There isn't really any way you can. So you have to use a completely different way. So the other issue then is that they're using that old factory thinking and trying to solve the problem that thinking created. So it's just not going to work. So those are the issues that I help people address.
Fantastic. And so, can you give us an example of a recent success story you've had with one of your clients?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a fellow named David Marinac, and he has his old factory is in the packaging business. So he makes packaging for food companies. Okay, and and he had the same issues. He said, "Listen, I have a good business, I have good products, but I have a lot of competition. It's dog eat dog, and there's not a very big margin on my work." And he worked so hard and long, and wearing him out. So I said, "Okay, well, let's figure out what your new factory will be." And so what he's developed is something called the Specialized Packaging Alliance. So it's a similar kind of what you've done, right? He's created a network of people in the packaging industry. So he's bringing together the people that sell packaging, all the different kinds, and these are specialized packaging companies, and then the people that buy that kind of packaging. And he's bringing them together in a network and then helping them do transactions. So he's getting a percentage of every one of those transactions.
Hmm.
So, and it's sort of, you can kind of see he's kind of created an Amazon, Facebook thing for the packaging industry, right? And
Yeah.
and it was that new factory thinking that gave him the insight to do such a thing, because he had just so used to just trying to sell his product. And I said, that's fine, but what if you'd help other people buy and sell products like in your industry? Well, maybe
Hmm.
it could be it. And he's just loves doing that. So he's making a lot more money, and it's a lot less work than he had before. And he's enjoying it much more because he can do it anywhere. Like he can travel, and it basically, just on his laptop computer, he can run all this business, you see. So
Hmm.
he's very excited. I remember he when I taught him about this, and then he called me up couple days later in the morning. He says, "Bell, I'm mad at you." I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, because I couldn't sleep last night." I said, "Well, why is that?" He says, "Well, I just had so many ideas of what I could do with this, and so many ways I could make money with it. I couldn't sleep." so, um, so that's my problem. I said, "Well, that's a good problem to have."
That's right.
And
Exactly.
so I said, "Well, it's because you've kind of gone from a business that was pretty finite to one that's sort of infinite now in
Hmm.
possibilities." And so
Exactly.
that can be hard to think about infinity sometimes, right? Like you just
Hmm.
got to kind of calm down a little bit. But anyway, so he says that's a great, really good problem to have. Is so many possibilities here. So anyway, that's one. I've got like so many examples. I can
Yeah.
share a few more when we have our meeting.
Absolutely. That sounds great, and nothing like making money in your sleep, right? If you could do something with the passive income, that's the way to go because we can't, we you only have so many hours in the day. And again, you know, like even if we had more hours in the day, like who wants to spend like their entire day, like and night working? We still want to have a life, even though we like doing what we're doing with the business. So
You
being
got to
able to
have a
have
life.
that, right, having that better work-life balance, all of a sudden one day you're like, oh my God, where'd my life go? You know?
Yeah, well,
So,
it's when you mentioned passive income, like that's one of the things that it's sort of like the holy grail of business. Like everybody talks about it, but very
mhm,
few people have actually figured out how to do that. And that's really one of the key strategies of new factory thinking is like,
mhm,
let's set this up so that you don't have to do all the work. You're just making money through passive income, which is a fantastic thing and totally doable for everybody.
mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, look, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Bill. It's been a pleasure, and I really look forward to your presentation in 2 weeks from now. So, November 12th out there, if you haven't got your ticket yet, please come out to meet Bill, learn some great ideas from him, and also to network for your business. So, you have a great rest of your day, Bill, and we will talk to you again soon.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.